Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the PCS Summer. My name's Asterix. I'm joined by Nightstar, and we're on to our second game. PSG versus Dewish team, which, let's be real. Still feels a little bit one-sided, but I'm hoping for something a little bit more exciting. As I remind you guys, CDBC Bank are our sponsors here. Thanks to Riot Games and Carry Live, as well as Garena for the league operation, the full production. But as I was saying, Nightstar, well, this hopefully will have a bit more spice to it, considering Jewish team, well, like Sem9 last week, in which case they picked up their very first win of the split.
Yeah, they really surprised with their victory over DCG.
Good word for it.
But when you kind of look back and see how it all went down, for the side of DCG, they just really mishandled a lot of these objective fights. I don't think that will happen against PSG, but certainly going into this draft for Dewish team, the key factor is just going to be them getting as strong a lane as possible and trying to be able to hold their own in the lane phase to get them to those first couple of fights where they stand the chance to hopefully flip the game in their favor.
Because look at who they're going up against, right? Bury has really moved into this roster nicely. I feel like Gory has gotten over some of the laning weaknesses we talked about with FPX, but more so just isn't being challenged like he was in the LPL. Remember, Nightstar, you and I were having a chat. It was like, Gory came into the league and I'm like, oh, his laning is just horrible. He's been able to get away with, a lot of his lanes and has been so impactful on this PSG roster. Feels like he's fitting in nicely, and at this point, PSG sitting at the top of the standings for a reason, because everyone's coming up trumps in such a massive way. What is it now? It's a 6-win streak that PSG have been on, since their loss earlier in the split, coming from, I'm just trying to remember who it was.
Beyond Gaming.
It was indeed. It was Beyond in week number 1, Nightstar. Well spotted. So ever since then, haven't dropped a single game, and that includes J-Team. That includes Frank Esports as well.
Yeah, and on the other side, for Dewish team, this is a squad that bounced back against one of the fastest losses against Sem9. Not the fastest loss anymore, but it was still a very disappointing game against Sem9, a fellow team down in the bottom, but they bounced back in a major way. They take down DCG, and part of that was just being able to draft strong lanes, hold their own, and then get to that big team fight where you win that 1 or 2 fights around early objectives, around Rift Herald, or that first dragon. All of a sudden, you've got this 4 or 5k gold lead that you can just snowball around afterwards.
Let's just quickly talk some stats about this early game and how it coincides, because for both teams, their win rate when ahead at 15 minutes is 100%. Now, not as impressive for Dewish team, because Dewish team have only won 1 single game. They got ahead of the early game and, snowballed from there. But for PSG Talon, maybe more so, this team in its loss in the split was behind. Behind from the start against Beyond Gaming. So, maybe the early game has that impact where it's who gets kind of rolling off the bat, because I feel like we know that PSG, even with the drafts that they pull out, some of these slow-moving, like Azir, Corki, we've seen an Ornn game like the Narf, Elios, the standards, maybe that's, something to look at as punishing here for Dewish team. As we look at the picks, I mean, look how different it is between Xiaotu and Gory Nightstar. Complete different angles.
Yeah, and, I mean, Xiaotu's been really, really reliant on the Zoe and the LeBlanc. Both of these picks, which I think are very good when your team just doesn't know really what to do. Because these are champions that kind of create their own play. We saw last year, the LPL was very reliant on these 2 champions as well, just saying, hey, to shore up anything, if we don't have good calls as a team, our mid laner just picks one of those 2 champs and makes something happen on their own. And that's sort of the approach that Dewish team have taken here for Xiaotu. However, at the same time, these are 2 champions that kind of drop off the face of the map if they don't get snowballing early.
That's very true. I mean, even the Jace has come through mid as well. Like, Xiaotu's champion pool, something that builds up momentum in the mid lane, with his most played being the Zoe. We'll see if it gets banned against him, because so far PSG taking away Samira. All right, Bang 2's brought that out in his win in the previous game. The Na against Lacunai. We're getting there. it takes every single broadcast to come back, and I'm like, wait, are we saying it the right way again? But yeah, nevertheless, the Narcos, the Silas as well, which is shared between these two mid laners.
Yeah, and we'll see if the Kalista does get taken off the table here, or the Zeri, because those are the two big AD carries that are still left on the table. Or maybe they go ahead and take away the Renata here for the side of Duish team. Okay, so it's going to be Zeri, should be the lock-in, but for Duish team, they've been very willing to leave up this Zeri pick, especially last split as well, and then just try and hit it with maybe a Twitch Yuumi. Perhaps that's the combination that they're looking to answer with in this particular draft. Or they might go for a Tristana answer to add kill pressure into the lane. So there are certainly approaches for Duish team. Also the fact that, hey, Zeri isn't exactly the strongest lane champion. Certainly scales out of her mind, but if we're taking our win condition as Duish team, they need to win the early game and then hope that they win one of those big team fights early on. That could be their way in.
Oh, okay. Well, one of those team fights consists of Jinx, because for Bang 2, this is going to be, what are we at? We're at 8 unique champions now picked up for this 80 carry. So setting themselves up with a scaling condition of their own, and the range, right? To outrange the Zeri seems to be the goal.
Yeah, and this is going to be very much about them trying to hold their own against a very strong scaling duo of Yuumi Zeri. So pretty powerful bot lane scaling champions coming in from both sides in PSG. We'll cover this Azir. This Azir has been targeted heavily in the ban phase against Gory, so having this up available for him, definitely a big boon, as this is going to be a pretty hard to lock down competition coming in from PSG already with the Zeri and of course this Azir pick, and Azir flying in with the Yuumi on top of him can definitely be lethal as well.
But I feel like Poppy here might actually be something worth for WSL, who has been really struggling as we've seen him in jungle. This would be his first Poppy, but hey, I mean, Poppy against his comp in theory does quite a lot of work. As you can deny all 3 champions on your screen for PSG so far.
Yeah, once you get on top of these champions, you will be able to deny their ability to get out of the fights. However, you have to get on top of them, right? So that could be a struggle for Poppy when it moves later on in the game, when these champions do get a lot more damage. You just kind of get shredded before you can even get close to them. But in the early mid game, definitely very much possible here. I like this Trundle ban takeaway. One of those early game junglers really needed to prop up this mid bot lane so far coming in from PSG. And PSG, it looks like they are taking away the Zoe, so maybe looking to take away something like that LeBlanc on the second ban as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Xiaotu, we were kind of talking up his champion before, very volatile. And in the same way that it doesn't feel like you can really ban out Bury here with the double jungle, it doesn't feel like Xiaotu you can really take too much away from his direction. Zoe the most played, we've already seen the Silas ban, the Corki through as well. Jace, LeBlanc, you already mentioned the LeBlanc there. PSG have a lot to play with here and have already slimmed it so much. Gwen goes down in the end, which is Lacuna's most played champion up in that top lane.
Banning away the Gwen, maybe for the side of the Duish team, they'll go ahead lock in the Gragas. That is also one of those champions that they've gone to kind of slow play over on top side. The Rise is really interesting. We have not seen Rise, and for good reason. He does not do well in the range from PSG. So unless if they're trying to threaten a flex into the top lane, I do not like this pick coming in this early.
Well, I'm curious about top lane even more so then. We've had a couple of rises in LPL, but yeah, looking across the board, it's not much at all. It's a couple in LPL, none in PCS so far. So this will be the first rise to come through in the region. And if you're putting your eggs in the top lane basket, or even bottom lane, let's be real, with side lane pressure, I'm just wondering what the last pick's going to be, because now it's a Sejuani, the take top lane.
Hmm.
Bury going on something as well that he's very comfortable on, as all junglers should be in the
Okay.
Viego. Oh, Xin Zhao as well. Okay, well, there's your engage. Further
Yes.
exemplified, but what do you take in the top side?
Currently, it's the Mordekaiser Hover, which is certainly does scale well into, of course, melee tanks, as Sejuani.
Okay.
Jax
That
come
would be a little
out.
bit more curious. Camille.
Ooh.
Even better. I've seen this matchup go badly, though.
Okay.
However, at least direction for Duish team seems to be hitting on sides here. Hitting on that top side with the Rise. This is an old combo as well, Nightstar. Remember, like Rise, Camille, that's season 8. Maybe, yeah, season 7, season 8 vibes.
Yeah, and this composition coming in from Duish team is really just all about snowballing top half of the map. You have the Rise, Poppy, Camille. This is a very unconventional approach in the current iteration of the game. Whereas on the side of PSG, there's a very stable composition. You have Sejuani, you have Xin, very strong front line, very good front to back. It's going to offer a lot of space for the Zeri to operate and dance around these walls to reset herself in these fights. And it also gives you the opportunity for Azir to fish for the best shuffle rather than just going and be forced to make a play with that ultimate. He has the initiators to be that secondary or tertiary engage with his ultimate.
I just love what you said in the draft, right? That exemplifies that point, which is the range is there. You know, playing Rise into this range, as you mentioned. Hell, like if Duish team don't get on top of them, we're just going to see a slaughter come through. So for PSG, simple front to back. For PSG, we kind of know them as this team. They're not a fast PCS team, right? We're not like, oh my God, they just take over.
Yep.
This team is so coordinated. I feel like their biggest relation is RNG and LPL. Strong mid-game team, really good macro, amazing dynamics with how they not only play side lanes, but how they play like 3rd, 4th, 5th Dragon fight Nightstar. At PSG at the moment, they're first for a reason, and that's why for Duish team sitting at 9th, equal 9th with Sem 9. If they lose this series, this game, excuse me. Duish team have got a lot to give, but it's only one win. They only picked up their first win. It was an upset against Beyond, but they need to do a hell of a lot more to make it a reality against PSG. Excuse me, it was Deep Cross Gaming, of course, but still, PSG are a different beast, as they are currently on a 6-win streak in the PCS Summer Split.
Yeah, another thing is, when it comes to Duish team being able to pick up the game against DCG aren't known as necessarily the strongest laners. They're very good in team fights. However, in the lane phase, they can allow the other team to just go even. I don't feel like that's the case here for PSG. Unified timing, definitely very strong. Gory, yes, he hasn't exactly just shoved his lead down the throat, but if you get him, allow him to be even, the amount of pop off he has in these early team fights is just so ridiculous. So I think Duish team, like, this composition is really all about your level 4 to level 6. Can you get an early gank with a Poppy to burn a flash on one of these solo lanes? If yes, then you can make a return gank with that Rise ultimate and maybe punish one of these side lanes. But if that doesn't really happen, I really struggle to see where Duish team are able to find openings in this game.
And again, I think coming back to that jungler, if it relies on him, for WSL, hasn't really had the greatest performance. The win came through on the Trundle, and that's been his best champion by far, but everything else has kind of flopped, and WSL has looked like a headless chicken at times too. So with this Poppy, his neck is on the line. As he continues pathing down towards bottom side, it will lead him to this bottom lane. Well, you can see Bury already doing a 3-camp clear, heading to bot himself, and stopping any volatility that might come through from what is I guess a mix-up of what we see in our 2v2 lanes.
And I mean, WSL on this Poppy pick definitely has a lot of value, right? With the steadfast presence, being able to reject every single one of these champions and stop them in their tracks. However, again, when you have Poppy in your composition, while it is a very strong champion by itself, you need pieces around it to really facilitate the pick, whether it's strong laners to be able to take advantage of uh, its strong early game, or you need a secondary engage to then be able to utilize her ability to separate front line from back with her ultimate. And if you get a two-man knockback with the hammer onto Hanabi and Buri, all of a sudden the backline is exposed. However, they just don't have great secondary engage. Yes, the Camille can be a factor, but the Camille has to be able to stand tall during the lane phase. Otherwise, when she goes in, she'll just go ahead and pop.
At least now it's a good start in the top lane. 11 CS for now for Lacunai, who got the counter pick. Gory is well aware that WSL is here. We saw that ward placed towards the entrance of Raptor Camp. And for PSG, it's given them the information. Gory's been playing around the wave and hasn't had to do much. It is a double crab, as Bury seems to be backing on the outskirts of this ward on the bottom side after doing a full clear.
It is going to be a double crab, so that's a solid start for WSL, right? We've been pretty critical about his pathing and some of the choices he's made, and perhaps waiting too long in top lane bushes sometimes, and unfortunately taxing his top laner a little bit too hard in some of these instances. However, at the same time, when you get yourself a double crab, onus is definitely on you to now perform on this Poppy pick. So look for him to be the critical factor. And we talked about, hey, levels 4 through 6, that has to be where Jewish teams start to find or at least fish for plays aggressively.
We'll be getting close towards that realm walk shortly. Shatu just hitting 5. He had to burn the TP to get into lane. Just worth mentioning if we do see the realm walk play and what Gory can get off the back end, well, his TP still remains intact. And Shatu starts walking down. This is just to give vision, but no camps up and available. Gory's already pinged that he's moving from lane. Unified and Kaiwing are paying the respect. And at Yubi Zeri, so many tools to get out this early on. So it seems like the play will just fizzle out, and the early game continues to be a bit of a farm fest with nothing much happening. We'll continue watching to see who gets those level 6s, because I feel like, again, you already set it up. PSG, though, we know what happens towards the later game. It needs to be Jewish team getting the ball rolling. And with one objective already up and available, I want to see what WSL goes for, because right now, Bury is out farming him in the jungle.
Yeah, and both of these junglers, they're not known to be power farming junglers. So farm, it should not be the main thing. These two champions do need to just look for plays. They have to fish actively. Can't just go ahead, sit back on the back foot. However, at the same time, for Zin, a little bit more leeway, since he gets a little bit more utility out of his ultimate just to create space. But for WSL, this is a good start. He gets himself the first dragon for his team. And for PSG, they understand, hey, our comp scales ridiculously well. We can afford to give the first 1 or 2 objectives. We just can't have a back-breaking fight like what happened to DCG, where they lost back-to-back big team fights, and all of a sudden, Jewish team are just given life where there shouldn't be life.
And I feel like as well, like for Jewish team for that first dragon, at the very least, denying it from PSG means that PSG don't have this condition to stall out the game. So far so good is what I'm leaving it with.
Yep.
While we wait for the Herald coming through, while Lacunai, as his Spidey senses, assuming that Bury is up on the top side, while the control ward bottom spots out WSL, who wants to set up this dive. He's going to go for this. I mean, Poppy's surely. However, he turns the other way, so I guess not. Maybe just doesn't have the confidence.
No wave there, and no level 6s, as now he's looking mid. Gory should know, though.
The shifting sands can be blocked. Good charge into the wall. The ulti sends back the Poppy.
Ooh.
WSL was unable to press the W, and Gory will survive for now without having to burn the flash. So WSL gets unscathed, but at the very least you take a big trade. With the ulti going down from Gory right before the Herald spawn.
Yeah, it does mean that Gory won't have that ultimate available when Herald does spawn, so perhaps that just gives added tempo over the side of Jewish team. We'll need to actually see them try and set up for this objective. They've already pulled Enhao over. And for PSG, we'll see how they end up responding. They are, I think they are sending the Zeri Yumi over. Although they are kind of hanging around the bottom half of the map. Interesting that they are trying to clear out wards when the play is clearly not on that half of the map. Maybe they are just going ahead, hey, let's concede this objective, and instead we're just going to make sure we clear out vision in this bottom half. But now they're making their way over.
I mean, Hanabi has been zoning off the area, so PSG kind of bought their time. And note that Hanabi still has the ulti available. Lakino might have his, but worth mentioning the lockdown available. They've bought time to get closer towards Gory's ultimate. WSL still having his available, however, and yeah, they're going to just turn back and not finding the pick on Xiao2. So Jewish team will get the first Herald. The early game set up quite nicely here. Now that we've hit the level 6 mark as well, it feels like Jewish team can get a lot of value out of these first couple of objectives.
Yeah, and this Herald usage is going to be key, though. PSG looking for this blue buff. And it does look like Jewish team will just go ahead and concede it, which is probably the optimal play there, as WSL is not in the vicinity to help out for a skirmish in that regard. It does mean that they've given some free time for Unified to get EXP by himself, as Xiao2, he needs to get out of this lane. Hysterics. Yeah. You do not get to play the game if you're stuck in lane against Gory.
But look how many opportunities have been, given to move top, just outside of the lane push and everything. Xiao2 hasn't been able to get topside. Hanabi has been pretty safe so far on the Sejuani. And now maybe for the gank, the ulti burn first time. Burry's here. Wind becomes lightning. The counter gank is beautiful. And WSL left standing with what the heck just happened. Meanwhile, Lacune, the ultimate's going to be chucked. A double stun. He has Ignite available. Hard to be close, but at least the shield here with the precision protocol going to help Lacune. While the flash comes through from WSL. Burry's there once again and saves his mid laner. WSL a bit over ambitious on the popping.
Yeah, certainly a little bit ambitious there. But even more ambitious was just trying to make a play with this Rise at that low HP. They try and call for the gank. It turns out Burry was there. But even then, I feel like Gory trades at least 1 for 1, even in that instance, because of how low Xiao2 was already brought down before the gank actually happened. And once again, really highlighting this Rise pick. It's just not right.
Yeah, it's not. Look again, because that was flash committed. And you're right, the health bar just wasn't willing.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of no comprendo. So now coming into this next Dragon fight, this is, if PSG want to go and fight for this, it makes a lot of sense because they have resources coming up. Their bot lane is now strong. You have level 6 onto the Yumi, so you can really do some damage in the back line if you're able to get access. And that's why, with the back timing coming in from back and Bang 2 as well, they actually get first dibs onto this dragon, and that is a big dragon for the side of PSG. Breaks the dragon stack, and now they have the time to scale if they want.
Well, WSL at least getting the steal in the meantime. I'm just wondering, like, what is he doing? We have a Herald. There's no trade here for Jewish team while Dragon is forfeit. He heads up to the top side. They can't get past Gory on this Azir. They keep playing as a Hex Flash over the wall.
They really
Gory
want
sends soldiers forward. I mean, they really want to kill him, but he has Flash available again. And Burry's nearby. WSL is now going to drop the Herald mid, but PSG with the 2-man stack here at the very least going to try and stop this. Move up, and I will say, thank someone that at least they got the turret. Wait. Even now, WSL going in for the dive. He'll be able to get the movement speed away, but will he really? Gory has the flash, and with the range now as well, it's a trade. Herald gets the push, which is the positive out of that one.
You know, Jewish team in an isolated gold situation, they trade up, right? Because you get the plates, and you go 1 for 1. So at least it is a move, and honestly, the kill onto Burry was pretty clean. Burry kind of overstays after he gets locked down. Really nice chain CC. Good execution on the play coming in from Douche team. But they do allow Gory to get himself the kill back, which is going to be problematic because still, yet again, Xiaotu, he's level 10. And I believe we've seen 0 realm warps come out.
That is correct. There have been 0 realm warps so far. This mid laner has not gotten out of lane, and as you said, problem with Gory is he already had the Luden's Tempest before that play came through. Now 2-0, a big CS lead brewing. Will be about 20 as TP's once again burned defensively here from Xiaotu. 30 seconds before it turns into Unleashed. And Gory is the one moving first. Rise is getting out-roamed by an Azir. And even though the dive doesn't happen, I mean, Bangtu and Enhao are being pressured. So Xiaotu and WSL have to match, but they do not want to take a 2v2 at this point. Do not fight this.
It's just really... I don't know. I feel like a lot of this chalks up to the fact that we had a Rise locked in. Because he's just trapped in the mid lane. He doesn't have shove against an Azir because it's an Azir. And he doesn't have the range to try and kill the Azir either. So it feels like they just have this giant void in this mid lane that they can't figure out how to play around, because a lot of times you're so reliant on your mid laner to be able to move and help out in these roams, but because he just doesn't have shove and he doesn't have the ability to just trade and find a 1v1 kill, they have no legs really to try and base any play around.
And it would be fine if we were like, oh, well, Rise will still, scale up or whatever. And while that might be true, it's like, well, Azir is always going to be better. And more importantly, as you said, the range comes into it. But the biggest part is, like, Azir wants an extended laning phase, and Rise doesn't. Rise wants to break up the map.
Tempest, Rise.
Yeah, so he's going to have damage, but at the very least, the utility kind of gone. Lacunai has not gotten any resources this game. He's now 10 CS down. And even though the Herald's going through, even though it's only a 1k gold lead to Jewish team, as Nightstar said in draft, if you're just tuning in PSG, it's simple. This comp out scales, and the way this game's going to be played is just so much easier from PSG's perspective. As first Heart Blood goes down in the bottom lane in the interim, like, that's another lane with a CS lead here at the 15-minute mark.
Yeah, it's also not really close in that bottom lane. It's about 20 CS differential. A lot of that comes from the fact that they just cannot roam this Rise down towards that bot side of the map. The Poppies tried a couple times to threaten plays down there, and it's been respected. For the side of Jewish team, I thought it was really, again, my review after the draft phase was just, hey, it's all about this Camille pick. We try and snowball around this Camille pick. If this pick gets snowballing, she finds 1v1 kills against Hanabi, but now...
Oh no, the flash in. That could be the lost chapter. The final chapter is Gory's ultimate doesn't do much. Going berserk thanks to the hostile takeover. Jewish team getting something good, but Unified is at full HP, and Electro surged up. Xiaotu's going to be bailed out, but he won't find the kill in response. WSL's flashed on. Unified and Kaiwing taken over. If it ain't one member of PSG talent, it's another. Jewish team are completely hand-stiffed in this game.
There's just no chance for Jewish team in that fight. Gory just comes over the wall, and he immediately, you don't see a response coming in from Jewish team. They're just immediately on the run. Don't have the answers. They don't have the damage because it's a Luden's Tempest Rise. You don't have lockdown, and your damage isn't that good. That's why Rise just isn't a pick anymore. We get to see the replay. Nice little handshake coming in from Enhao. I mean, he plays it as well as he does, right? It throws down the ultimate, it lands onto multiple people. But Bang 2 isn't on the item spike, so they can't just get that first kill to get him snowballed. So all your damage is coming from Poppy and a Luden's Tempest Rise, and Rise doesn't get enough spells to get him low enough to get that first reset.
Objective bounty going to be obtained as we come back. And you know, I'd give Jewish team some slack, right? If you know, if this comp now as it starts moving around in the mid game wasn't behind, if we were even, and Nightstar, we were going into a mid game that was even though it would be like, okay, well, PSG, from what we've said out on the win cons, are favorable, I'd still be like, well, now the Rise, you know, can still move to sides, can still set up Camille. We would still have options because scaling's not absolutely horrible for Jewish team, but they're getting choked out. And this is what we know about PSG. Not only the vision setup is amazing, but this macro we talk about, the setup towards mid-game, and why I kind of compared them to RNG, although not 100% accurate, is because their coordination is just so slick as they continue to choke out the map state and make Jewish team scared to run even into their topside jungle with Bury playing so aggressive.
And they're just slowly but surely losing map control over their own half of the jungle here for the side of Douche team. And the big drawback here against a team like PSG is that they just don't give you any ground once they do get ahead. They're very slow and steady. It's very hard to flip the game, or find a timing to try and flip the game back into your favor. It really, like against DCG, they still go for somewhat flip moves. So even if they do get ahead, they'll sometimes flop a play, and that's your opportunity, right? However, against PSG, they're so methodical, very, perhaps too methodical sometimes. But against Jewish team, who at this point in time need to rely on a flip, it's going to be very difficult to find the flip.
I mean, we can kind of see why PSG are on that 6-win streak, talking their praises in this game, but it's not the first time. At the start of the split, I remember casting PSG. I think it was versus J-Team at the very start of the, or maybe it was CWC Flying Oyster with their rematch for the Grand Finals. I have 2-second final, and it was CWC Flying Oyster. There's the first Realm Warp! Okay, shout to
Went backwards.
Yeah, at least it was the first one, though. Let's be real. But, you know, this is why PSG Talon, I'm sure, a favorite for a lot of the fans, considering that PCS, once again, has 2 seeds going towards Worlds. And a lot of people saying, well, one of those seeds should be PSG, especially with how they're playing at the moment. Heading up a 9-1 if they can beat Jewish team here, and it's looking like it. And yeah, they're starting the Baron, but look, they're taking no damage. As TP comes through, they've got a Yuumi, so who cares if they start it? As Hex Flash going to go over the wall, aggro stopped as Hex Flash is stopped too. At 2k, the ulti to keep this verdict from WSL channeled and stopped. We'll have 15 seconds on the timer as PSG once again jumping in, is going berserk with a hostile takeover. The ult side, it's stolen from WSL. And for PSG, that's a little bit upsetting as then how Flash is over, but you're going to lose so many members, and even though it's a great play from Jewish team's jungler, PSG still clean up the scraps.
Lacunai does find the play to stop the teleport coming in from Hanabi over to that fight, and if he doesn't stop that, maybe they just lose everything. They lose the Baron and the rest of the team. So at the very least, they are able to salvage something, and with this Baron buff, it will help stabilize Lacunai on the Camille. However, the issue is, while it's a nice chunk of gold into the pockets of Jewish team, it's not enough to fully stabilize the rest of the team here. As we see Kaiwing, he tanks up a lot of the first couple of shots here, which is of course what you can do with Yuumi, because you're not really scared about getting taken low. You can just hop onto someone else, and this is well executed from PSG and just stopping the DPS onto the Baron. However, this is a really good YOLO play coming in from Jewish team. They throw out the ultimate coming in from the Renata, and that makes the play low enough to give WSL the opportunity to flip when he flashes in with the Poppy. And yeah, the smites weren't exactly clean, but Jewish team, this was the flip that they needed to try and slingshot their way back in.
Yeah, a start, right? A start. I still don't feel confident here with Triple Dragon going over to PSG in the meantime. But the Baron power play, 500 gold in Jewish team's favor, kind of tells you that PSG haven't dropped too much of that gold lead. We're now down to 3. You can see the graph on the bottom side of your screen, but look, apart from that, still the same conditions in place. Jewish team We need to see them play with the Rise. Need to see this Rise start working out. Because even though we get DWT Team somewhat back into the game, PSG have got that clock with the Dragon. They've got themselves a 1v2 on the top side as Hanabi takes some damage. Good stun against the wall, but WSL and Lacunai are going in and out, then in and out. Now the ulti comes through. Lacunai stuck under turret. What was that? Hanabi gets a 1v2, but that was just so uncoordinated. Oh, dear.
Yeah. That definitely was a little bit all over the place. Do remember that Lacunai and WSL is playing from a much different location. He's playing with Xiaotu, so perhaps that slight difference in communication might have harmed them in that instance, but certainly they just weren't on the same page. And even if they get that kill, it is still onto a Sejuani, so you don't feel too bad about it if you were PSG. But even then, Hanabi just gets the 1v2 kill.
Yep. Yes, he does. And just like that, you know, we're back to square one. 5k gold lead just about. And we'll be waiting for the Dragon in 3 minutes 30. Maybe forget Baron for the time being as PSG just continue doing what we saw 4 or 5 minutes ago, choking out the vision in front of this neutral. And for DWT Team walking into their own jungle, still as risky as ever, as it's over the red buff. The shield wants to come through from WSL, and he does fish, and he does catch something. But for DWT Team, yet again, it's only these small wins for now. As you can see, Gory setting up topside wave in the meantime.
Yeah, Hanabi on the side. They do kind of have DWT Team funneled in if DWT Team were ever to take a fight. Easily collapsed upon from both sides. But when we take a look at these items for DWT Team, the best opportunity is hopefully to get that last or third item onto your Jinx. With that extra Lord Dominic's regard, maybe that's enough oomph to help get that first reset. But other than that, it really just comes down to Lacunai being able to pin down one of these backline carries, whether it's Gory or Unified. Hopefully isolate and split them away from the fights to then allow the Jinx to get that first takedown, and hopefully with that reset, be able to find the damage on to the rest of PSG. But it's definitely a tall task. But it's not outside the realm of possibility, which, you know, 25 minutes into the game, you're down 5k gold. It looks bad, but anytime we have a Jinx in the game, you just need that one hope, right?
Yeah, you do. I've been waiting for third item, though. Jinx, the third item, and a huge spike for this 80 carry. Problem is, Unified is already there with the Infinity Edge Phantom Dancer added on into the repertoire. And Gory now has a Zhonya's Hourglass, so if we're talking about picking up some of the backline of PSG, look at how many tools they have. As TP comes through, PSG were deep for this. You said Unified, they're on top of him, and maybe it's okay. The Death Rocket doesn't connect, but Unified's still down. And Kaiwing by himself. I guess if they're split up, then Unified can die.
Yeah, and they pick off Unified on that play. Very easy kill, and Kaiwing very quick to follow. So really nice execution coming in from DWT Team. A little bit unlucky for them that, you know, the objective isn't quite there yet, but a kill is a kill. As we get to see the collapse, they pull this teleport play, and really nice engage coming in from the top jungle that we highlighted. And I mean, shout to, I guess he flashes forward for a little bit of damage. But I mean, they need more. They need one more of those before the objective, and then maybe we're cooking with some gas.
Yeah, because we're forced into a 5v5. I mean, DWT Team have to fight this next dragon, otherwise it's Soul. And it's shame it didn't come a dragon earlier, because Lacunai now with 3 items. This Camille, the one to watch for sure. If this gets stalled out for DWT Team, maybe we'll start talking again here, as Enhao might be caught. He has to flash away from the glacial prison, and
Camille,
in the nick of time at half HP, but DSL going in, the flash right again. Unified's dead. The hostile takeover, great too. But Hanabi's dealing with 3 people. They need to kill him, and they do, so the reset goes through. Well, Enhao and Xiaotu are getting low. Like, you know, the same as Gory is still alive. The other carry now with the Yumi on top, as Enhao is going to be the first to die. Get him out of there. The President survives, and for Duish team, it's still going to be a favorable trade if WSL gets out alive. He's not slow for now, but the flash coming through. The TP committed. Furry almost kills him, but Lacunai came on in for this to save his jungler and almost dies himself. The problem is, jungle gets low. Top just TP'd in. Jewish team may have found the favorable fight, but PSG have a Dragon Soul for free.
Yeah, and that's the key factor, was that Jewish team, they found the pick that they needed to get the dragon afterwards. The issue was they ended up overstaying. They didn't slam their recalls fast enough or look to turn to try and force the dragon fast enough. And for the side of PSG, like, if Gory is still alive, yes, you turn and kill Unify, but again, you don't have the range to deal with this Azir pick. This was as good of a fight as they were going to get. They delete Unified at the start. They get that first reset onto Bang 2. However, Bang 2 is stuck autoing Hanabi, and while Hanabi does go down, it just occupies so much of the time that now Gory, he's able to do a lot of work onto their front line. And when it comes to backline, Gory is still stronger.
He is, but I mean, I can't help but think that for Duish team, even though they lost Infernal Soul, this Poppy value is huge. Look again at top jungle. The
Gory
angles here as Gory is trying to zone himself out, only if he's in the middle of a W, Nightstar, as PSG once again have themselves the same position, but they haven't spotted out Lacunai and WSL. Once again, the difference makers will have to watch as PSG head towards Baron.
Secret agent, WSL, Lacunai. Time to see if they can work their magic. Find yet another pick.
Hanabi's looking. You can see Hanabi's
WSL.
Highwing back onto
Here's the ultimate.
Unified as, okay, we need a steal.
Gory's
get jungle out. Bury still on the objective. Look at Baron. It's going to be taken down by PSG, but their team fight is shot here as they only have Gory left alive with Unified dead. Again, they rely on this Azir. Trying to get the Poppy. He turns on the Xiaotu, who will get bailed out. Gory's ulti great as he goes on, comes back in. Lacunai the next target. The Azir big, and Gory might not have looked good at FPX, but he sure as hell dominates in the PCS.
His Azir stands tall once again. Hysterics. Duish team just don't have the oomph, and once again we see the creative shot calling coming in from Lacunai and WSL, but unfortunately, again, there's just not enough oomph coming in from this back line to snowball around these picks. Time and time again, we're seeing the isolation onto Unify as we just see brilliant ultimate knocks out a key damage dealer in Gory. But now, all of a sudden, they're kind of split on their decision-making. WSL, he goes for the Baron, right? But if he turns for the fight, or if the side of Duish team, you know, they have Lacunai turn for the Baron as well, maybe they're able to secure the Baron buff. However, because of split decision-making, they get neither. And that is just really unfortunate for the side of Duish team, because you certainly saw the angle that they were going for.
From Lacunai especially. I mean, Xiaotu doing the most damage in that fight, but overall, Gory doing the most damage out of the two teams. 7,000 here on the Azir. Gory's level 18 versus Xiaotu 16. He's almost full build with his 5th item in the making. I mean, Gory is getting to the point where he's going to Flame Horizon his opponent. Once again, Gory is looking like one of the best mid laners here in the PCS, as this Azir is standing strong with so much poke that even Bang 2 can't head up, and he's just picked up his 3rd item. But that LBR still not going to do it as much as an Infinity Edge would, and PSG now with the confidence to walk forward. Nightstar back at square one for the 3rd time this game. PSG with double inhibitors down as Lacunai, hang on, I'm not going to give you a space here, Nightstar, because I feel like this is where PSG want to end, because Lacunai needing the flank here as PSG take one Nexus turret. But Lacunai needs an angle, so does WSL, but he'll be going
long
on
con.
They know he's here. They know that this guy's behind them as It's got to be a
goal?
move now. Keeper's verdict is going to get down Hardamy, but they turn for the play. Lacunai is sent up, and Gory's ult straight again. As he goes golden, Endhouse ult doesn't connect, and this is here alongside the Zeri that hasn't been taken down this time. Dominate Jewish team. It was a close run, but rely on the 5v5s, and PSG will make it in the end.
Again, hysterics. PSG, when it comes to these team fights, are just way too clean. And for the side of Jewish team, they just didn't find enough ground in the early game to be able to snowball around this team fight phase. PSG, once again, walk away fairly unscathed.
Fairly unscathed. There were some moments in that game I started to believe. You know, WSL, someone who we've been very critical of, I feel like, for the jungle. Pathing felt a lot better this game. I think secondary, though, with this Poppy, you know, some of those plays with Lacunai in the mid-game were so good, picking angles well. However, it's just, you know, those early leads that we were talking about from bot, from mid, so significant that you pick off one element of the damage source and Gory survives, or Unified vice versa. Like, you know, there's always one more you have to worry about the Jewish team.
Yeah, and for the side of Jewish team, they focused all their resources really onto Unified. And if these were earlier fights, you could definitely see a world where Jewish team are able to then snowball these fight wins. However, they just weren't able to set up the 5v5 enough early on when, you know, before Gory got to his monstrous status, right? Where he's able to just sort of 1v5, even if Unified does get taken down. But imagine a world where, you know, he's only on 1 or 2 items. Then it's a much different fight. You give your Jinx a chance to try and mop up. So PSG, I mean, this was kind of everything we expected in this game, right? Jewish team, they try and flip the game early. Unfortunately, even though the comp was there, the execution was not.
Yeah, it wasn't. It's a shame because I feel like the Jewish team kind of showing us those elements we saw in the last game, in the win against DCG. This team's definitely developed throughout the split, but, you know, PSG are a different beast at the end of the day. We know that as we, you know, we'll shortly bring up stats, I know. Let's be real, probably going to be a Gory MVP. Because Gory in that game, once again, just popped off on the Azir. And what a lane, what a lane for him, as you were saying, against the Rise. Didn't really have much challenge from Xiaotu this game.
This Rise pick was the most interesting counter pick option. As we get, I mean, it still ended up doing the most damage for his squad. But we never ever found the impact coming in from the Rise pick. He didn't have any round warps to try and aggressively attack these side lanes, and just allowed Gory to just flourish in this game. And flourish he did. 42% of the damage. Like, he didn't even need Unified on the Zeri. So while Zeri is still going to have a pretty clean win record here, I mean, the Zeri kind of just died. It was there. It was there.
It's hard. When they use everything to kill this one Zeri, I feel like it's hard for Unified. When he had, you know, some really good team fights this game as well, but Gory, deathless for a reason, was the one left standing, and a couple of triples in that game, I believe, by the end. Like, the damage to gold sells the story too. When he was level 18 and almost full build, he still has over 200% damage to gold ratio. Like, that's just insane to show you how much he did early on. As, you know, we didn't get to see the side lane presence from Jewish team. We know that Gory got to stay in lane for so long, maintaining a 20-30 CS difference, almost getting a flame horizon towards that 33-minute mark at the end as well. It's so well deserved here as he moves up to second in MVP standings now. Nightstar at 4 under YSKM. So I feel like he's adapting to the PCS so nicely. Yeah,
and if you give him his Azir, he just does a disgusting, disturbing stuff. I think that's his 3rd game of Azir or something like that, and every single time he's just absolutely mops these team fights so easily. So that has to be a big pick to set people's attention to in the draft phase moving forward, especially for these top teams that are looking to counterplay or counter draft PSG in the playoffs.
But speaking of top teams, I mean, next one is going to be a doozy. PSG start us off in our second game of the night, but our third, J Team versus DCG. Now that's one you got to stick around for right after this.